Welcome to FCC Supporters Square. For fans, by fans, and about fans. Here are your hosts, Mark Shipman and Matt Foreman.
So sorry about that.
Hey, so welcome. This is a new year, a new season for us here at FCC Supporters Square, and a new opportunity to do some things before the season actually runs. We're going to be starting a series of podcasts before this season starts, calling No and SG. For those who don't know, Mark Suppin and myself are both members of the Brigade, and so we called some of our members of the brigade. In coming weeks, we'll have other SGs, so it's not the cards aren't stacked against anything. And so, happy New Year, everybody! How's everybody doing?
Pretty well.
Great. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Excellent, sir. Good to see you all.
So everybody knows Mark, but we have a couple others today. We have Pat Grimes. Say hi, Pat.
Hey, how are we doing?
There we go. And Trina.
Hey, how's it going?
I always have a hard time saying your last name. I'm afraid I'll say it wrong.
Ingle.
There you go. See,
Ingle.
I would say ignoble or ignoble, or I'd say it wrong. So, all right, I don't want to say anybody's name wrong.
I've had that for most of my life, so it's all good.
So before we start, I have a bone to pick with Cincinnati Soccer Talk. I don't know if you know this, Mark, but they have taken our podcast and have done a super fan podcast. I say stop. I say, let us do our thing. We're doing our thing. You do everything. You've got Sony, you got Apple, you've got national media, you get Pat Noonan on your broadcast, and I get guys dressed up with Viking helmets. So let us do our thing. You do your thing. We'll all be okay. So that's all I have to say. And by the way, thanks everybody who has been listening and will be listening in the future. This is the real podcast. This is the podcast you really want to be on. So with that being said, oh my gosh, I'm glad this is the week to actually do something, because bad news, good news. At least in the rumor mill, it seems like bad news, but we knew it was coming. Is Brandon Vasquez looks like he's going to Monterrey for $7.5 to $8.5 million. So, how do we feel about that?
Great for him. Yeah, I'm happy for him. The only drawback will be is if we advance and Monterey advances, and he's back at TQL, right? But on the other side in a blue and white stripes instead of orange. So yeah, we'd have to. I don't know if he scores. That's gonna suck, especially if he blows kisses.
Yeah, that's gonna be tough.
He'll wait till PKs for that, obviously. Throw little hearts, right? Little hearts, everybody.
Exactly.
So
Mark,
what happened with EPL, though?
Yeah, it seemed like they were going to that's all I heard was EPL, and now I hear it's Liga MX. What do you think, Mark?
Well, surprised a bit for Vasquez going to Monterrey. They have a excellent striker in Herman Betarame, and but the atmosphere, you cannot discount anything. It's massive there in Monterrey. Their stadium huge. They fill that place. It is rocking. I wish Vasquez the best, because he's proven himself here. He has risen to the occasion and become an all-star, a U.S. men's national team player. He led the league with Brenner in goals. He's done everything he can do, I think. The only thing is he didn't win MVP, but he helped get a supporter shield for us. So dude has stepped up, and he deserves everything he gets.
Uh, I think you nailed all the points. As a matter of fact, you know more of the Monterey players than like you were doing homework. I haven't
Well,
talked to you in a month, and suddenly you're an analyst. So
well,
that's fantastic. Oh,
the
and
league.
somebody finally decided to join, ladies and gentlemen. Particularly if you're on the audio, you can't see this, but ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the splendiferous, the man who epitomizes all things Irish, Mr. Colin Hill. How are we
Oh,
doing,
stop.
sir?
It's far too much already. Far too-
There you go, brother.
Well, you paid me to say that, so I did.
The check cleared. The check cleared.
So we just were talking about Brandon Vasquez going to Monterey. That was the bad news. The good news is, well, I think we know. We're talking about the place rocking and a place to come to. I think we do our job, and now we have probably the best center back pairing in the league and one of the best center back pairings anywhere with Miles Robinson. So, Colin, what do you think about the Miles Robinson announcement?
Yeah, I think Albright's doing everything right is the kind of the rhyme I've been going with on most of this. But I think we're set up for success. I think we finally got the right team in place at the helm of the ship, putting players together, matching things up. I'm excited for all the announcements. Excited to see what Brandon does down in Mexico, honestly.
It should be an interesting thing. You know, which we knew that in our league, sadly, we're the league where people move on to bigger and better things. And I have a feeling that the Alvaro Barriel will probably find a place somewhere in Germany or Europe. It seems like that's nobody's talking about it, but everybody knows about it. So that's the interesting part there. So
That's
uh,
the elephant in the room.
with that being said, with one out and one in, and before we get into our SG stuff, um, who do we need? What do we need? Obviously, I think we need a replacement for Vasquez because he's on his way out, and obviously we might need a left back. But up the spine, we've got two center backs. We've got Obi. We've got Lucho. We've got. I think we've got the center taken care of. We just need the wings taken care of. Does anybody know or hear or would like a player, Pat?
I don't know. I think if by some miracle we can keep Barriel and or Mascara. I know he's meant to go back and the Wolves get him and but if we can hold on to either of them, I mean we could play Vermeer in goal with that back line, right? Like we don't even need a good goalkeeper at that point. So I'd definitely like to see if we can hold on to one or two of those guys in addition to the pickups we have, I think we'll be fine with just about anybody. And I don't know, some of the young guys coming up, maybe give them a little more chance to show what they've got. And I'm pretty happy with where we're at though. So I think anybody we get from here on out's just icing.
Put on my finance cap for a moment because I do that every day anyway. But I would say that a lot of what we've done this year and a little bit last year was building equity in the players that we have. And they are of higher value on the open market than they've ever been. So, I think we look more at the moves that we're going to make from that standpoint and say, hey, if somebody has to leave, we're going to get good value for them and we'll be able to have much more leverage on the back end for whoever we acquire. But to Matt's point about how we've got the right players in the middle, I think instead of looking at who else we need, I think it's making those players in the middle more cohesive. I think some of our most exciting moments last year were when we were building up in the midfield to attack in the front end. If you guys, all of you have been fans since the 2015 era, when we used to just kind of run and gun from the back line all the way down the field and hope that something went in. But now we're seeing real play built in the midfield, much the same way you see on Mascara's homes over there at Wolves in the Premier League. You see a lot of very good ball movement in the middle. And so I'm excited to see what our team can do to look more like that European style football, where you can watch a 30-second clip of a build up and a play instead of just one shot. Those are the fun things to see.
I think we're moving in that direction. I honestly do. I think for as well as we did last year in the supporter shield, we could definitely do better because I think we fell down an awful lot of times for teams who played us tough in the midfield, so particularly the team up north. I don't want to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about. So exciting news this week, and we just got started, and I'm very happy. So this special is nearest and dearest to my heart because these people I've hung out with. It's called No and SG. So I can't think of a better person in to talk about the brigade than Colin. So Colin, the question is well, we all know if for people who are listening, you're like, well, I'm not I don't know what is an SG, a supporter group. So we are supporters. Most of the supporters sit in the Bailey, but not all of us sit in the Bailey. But we are the more super fans as opposed to the moderate fans. I think that's an easy way to say that. So that's what a supporter group is, and we do things like paint tifos and come up with those types of things. So we're going to try to get some of the administrative stuff out because this is the first of the series. So people are like, oh, I'd like to join a supporter group. What does that entail? But first off, how did we come about with the brigade, Colin?
History. Oh goodness. As is the culture that we try and imbibe, our history is silly and fun and exciting. Are we allowed to say the original name on your podcast, Matt?
You can.
Right
Okay.
here.
That's right. Because we weren't in MLS, we were going to be what was it, FCC violated or whatever.
Yeah.
No, so I'll make the story as short as I can. But first game, first season, there was a group of us that bought the cheap ticket, which was the Bailey at the time, and we found ourselves in section 135 in the first few rows. And that happened to be, if you remember that stadium, that happened to be where the players came out of the locker room onto the field. And one of the first traditions of this group was to heckle the opposing team. That none of us knew any players, none of us knew the referees, but we knew that those were just the guys we didn't want to win that game. So we decided to get in their ear and be real bastards to them. And I remember a buddy of mine saying that, and that's kind of how the name came to be, the Bailey Bastards, because somebody said, I think it was Sean, who's actually not even a member anymore, but we were heckling these guys, and he just kind of turned to me and chuckled, and he said, these guys must think we're real bastards. And I said, we're the Bailey Bastards. And so anyway, the name stuck for a little bit, and that's where we started. And we saw that Dienenstadt had kind of taken ownership of the German heritage of the city. And I'm Irish by heritage, but I've always liked the Celtic culture and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, hey, there's not an Irish group or anybody that's doing shamrocks or anything like that. So that could be fun. So we kind of morphed into that. And eventually, when we made our forays into MLS, my favorite part of the story of the group is when MLS security advisor pulled me aside at the announcement party, saw our scarf, and or not the announcement party. It was before the announcement because we were already the brigade by then. But anyway, he had pulled us aside and said something like, I love your name and I love your group, but they'll never say that name on the air when you guys get to MLS. And I said, oh, really? Bastards? That's that bad? And he said, yeah, that's a word that you can't say on the air. And I'm like, well, that's pretty crazy. He said, come up with something else. And so I remember we had a meeting at what was the pub down there in Clifton? It wasn't Clifton Heights because it wasn't open that day. Murphy's, that's right. We went down to Murphy's and we played some darts, and we sat there and we brainstormed for a while, and the brigade came out of that. And I love that we've kind of kept our heritage in our logo. We've got all the B's harkening back to Bailey Bastards, Brigade. We've got that continuity there. But yeah, so I will also add one last quick story about the origin, and that was when we started kind of moving into the Celtic and Irish heritage portion of our identity. We did it without a lot of experience, and because I was kind of leading that, but I had always been the guy that attended those festivals and participated, but I didn't really lead a group like that or know anything like that. And so I would be remiss if I didn't mention our late friend Kyle on this podcast and the history. And Kyle's entry into the group was in true Kyle fashion. We had been posting on social media about our identity being Irish Celtic in nature, and he sent a tweet that just kind of dug at us and said, well, you guys aren't really Irish. He was joking and laughing about how we weren't authentic enough, and he kept tweeting these things. And finally, I sent him a direct message and I said, "What's your deal, buddy? Why are you trying to undermine our group?" And he said, "Well, I'm probably one of the biggest Celtic guys in the area. I love Celtic FC and yada yada." And I said, "Well, why don't we sit down and talk about it?" I just said, "Let's get together." And he said, "Well, I don't have time for that. I work at Clifton Heights Tavern and blah blah blah." So I showed up and I went in the bar and I met him and we talked about all the history and he had Celtic jerseys on the wall there and scarves, and we talked soccer for hours and we were fast friends. And at the end of that conversation, it was just that first conversation, I said, "You need to be a part of this." And he said, "All right, I'll do it." But he was reluctant, but I'm glad that he did, and became a great friend and great leader in this organization and really helped us identify the soccer culture with the Celtic culture. And that was a lot of fun. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Kyle, but that's kind of the long and short of it. It was just friends being that grew into friends being more silly for the club and being supportive and excited. And I think what I love most about us, and I'm sure people in the Pride and DI and other groups would say the same thing about their groups, but I wouldn't know any of the people on this Zoom, much less the other 200 members we have, if not for the club and for the saying, "Hey, we're a group, come join us." I don't know how I would have met any of you guys any other way. So I'm just grateful for the friendships.
And that's the big thing that you get out of an SG, any SG, RSG or other SGs. And as a matter of fact, at the end of the year podcast that we had, the previous podcast, if you're going sequentially, you would have heard the same thing, is that all of those people that were there, we're all really good friends, but we would never have met each other or come in contact with one another if we didn't hang out in support of FC Cincinnati. So,
Yeah, Matt, can I jump in on that real quick?
Yes, I want to know how you got into this.
Yeah, well, I have a funny story about the friends bit, right? So, we went down to a game, and I took two of our friends with us, and we were walking through the concourse, and a couple of other brigade members were coming at us, and they looked up and they were like, "Hey, grime time!" high-fiving as we went by. And my buddy Dean says, "Well, who was that?" I said, "Oh, those were my bar friends." And he said, "No, no, really, who were they?" And I was like, "No, they were my bar friends." And he goes, "No, I'm really asking you, where do you know these guys from?" And I'm like, "The bar, Hangover Easy, the bar."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Wow, you have bar friends? It's like Cliff and Norm from Cheers."
That's right.
I was like, "It's exactly like that. It's super fun. I wouldn't know these guys otherwise." And so it's a good time. So
true.
So how did you happen upon us, Pat?
So we started coming down. Pam and I took the kids and the kids' friends and stuff because it was so cheap. All the way back 2016 or whatever when we started, right? So um, we started going down all the time with the kids and friends, and then as the kids got a little bit older, the next year or two, they got into all their high school stuff, so they stopped coming with us. And so Pam and I just started exploring Clifton, and so we were hanging out. Went over to the Top Cats and the sticky floor there, and Ladder 19 with the $2 Miller High Lifes, and we were doing the whole bit, right? So all over the place. And we went down to Mex one day, and we saw the march kind of assembling at the bottom of the hill, and I looked over and I was like, "Hey, how does somebody get involved in this?" Dude hands me a flag and he said, "You're in it. Let's go." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, this is cool." So, I mean, that hooked me immediately. Pam and I jumped in the march. We, marched over, did the thing at the Bearcat statue, and went on in. And then, kind of to Colin's point, I went home immediately and looked up FC Cincinnati supporters groups, and I was like, Irish, boom, that one's for me. And then I saw the DI, and I was like, "Hey, Pam's German," so we signed Pam up for DI, and I signed up for the brigade, and then we started coming. And then the following week, we went over. I looked at the homepage and stuff. The following week, we went over to Hangover Easy, and everybody was out on like the back porch. Remember the back porch there? And so we went to Hangover Easy back porch, and Pam and I, didn't know anybody. We just kind of sat down at the end of a table, and somebody immediately walked right over to us and said, "Hey, welcome to Hangover Easy." And I said, "Hey, thanks. I'll have 2 Rheingeist cheetahs and some of those nachos." And she was like, "No, I'm part of the brigade. I'm not your waitress." And so that was my introduction to the brigade. And a couple minutes later, Colin came over and he liked my sunglasses. So, and then from the rest, we were good from there. So that's kind of how we got started. And it was just sort of fortuitous that we picked the Irish and German, and then we kind of tested out the different supporters groups just to see what the different vibes are, and we just really click. Really like the brigade, so that's where we spend about 97% of our time. Occasionally, we'll just to mix it up a little bit, we'll swing into another pregame or something, but for the most part, it's just us and the Irish. So
I want to highlight what Pat said about picking up the flag and the guy saying you're in it. I think that should be like the T-shirt next year that really embodies not us as an SG, but us as a club. For those of you, I think all of you guys were kind of early adopters of fandom for FC Cincinnati, and if you remember, I know it seems like 20 years ago, but kind of realizing that we weren't alone in soccer fandom in general, and kind of showing up there and being like, wow, so there are people that like this sport in town. Like, not that we didn't know that people went to bars and watched Premier League games, but just to assemble there in a stadium together and have a team to mutually root for, because you knew your buddy that's a Liverpool fan, you knew your buddy that's a City fan, and that was all good. But it was fun to watch the organic growth, and I think all of us that were there will never forget the March for MLS opening. And I was fortunate to be at the front of that with, as luck would have it, it was literally the original founders of pretty much each SG. All four of us, I remember, was Jared from DI, Chris White from the Pride, and me, and we're all up there at the front. And in unison, as we got to the Bearcat statue, it's going to give me goosebumps just talking about it, but turning around and looking back up the hill in that picture that was on, if you can believe this, that was on the cover of newspapers in England. I have family that live in Walton upon Thames, and it was on their cover of their newspaper. And I'll never forget Jared saying, "Oh my gosh, what have we done?" But that's SGs, right? And that's what we do, and we hand the flag and we say, "You're in it, and welcome to the club," because everything else kind of fades away on match day. It doesn't matter where you work, what what neighborhood you come from, any of that. We're there wearing the orange and blue, and we're all family, and it's a lot of fun. I have, a lot of people know me inside and out, and it's really true. I wouldn't have met most of these people had it not been for this.
Trina, we know that you from a previous episode that you're our capo. You're our super fan of super fans, I guess.
Also a drummer now.
Also a drummer now. So there you go.
Yeah.
So it's not just it's just not the megaphone. It's the drums.
Yeah.
How did you find us, real quick, and what brought you to the brigade?
Okay. Well, I initially had started in about 2018, coming to the matches. But to do that, I didn't know where to sit or how to get into the Bailey at the time. So I, again, looked up on the website, saw the supporter groups. The first one I saw was DI. So I joined them and made a call out saying, "Hey, I'd like to sit in the Bailey for my first match ever, at an FC game." And so someone reached out and said, "Hey, I've got a ticket for you, but I will meet you at Hangover Easy," which was where Bailey Bastards was. And so
Hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah, it was really kind of serendipity there. So I met the person, I got the ticket, and then I saw, the Bailey Bastards, and so I said, "Oh, what's this group here?" Asked around, and they said, "Oh, this is Bailey Bastards," and I saw the, the Shamrocks and the Celtic heritage, and I thought, I like these guys because I have Scottish heritage, so close enough, and I also liked the friendliness, like of everyone around. Everybody was just happy talking to each other. It was a smaller group. I liked the appeal of that, and it just, I decided I'm going to join Bailey Bastards at the time, and from there, just kind of took off. So that's it.
That is, and that's the story you're going to hear throughout all the SGs is these types of things. So we're always welcome to have any SG, but clearly we want you with our SG. Since I am the webmaster, you want to go to thebrigade.com. If you find this remotely interesting and you want to hang out with these fine group of people and a knucklehead, please join the brigade at thebrigade.com. And hopefully you like the website, because I have a day job and I need to put some more time into it, but it's looking better than it was, and we've got the new membership, so we'd love to see you. I'm trying to see how much time we actually have, because we're trying to get in here and get things done. Two things. One, we in March at the St. Patty's Day parade here in Cincinnati. Colin, would you like to speak briefly on that?
Yeah, so we've tried to dip our toe into a lot of different Celtic events and things around the city. I was surprised as we've done that over the years how many there actually are, how uncoordinated the groups are, because they all kind of have their own little thing. But we've developed a lot of friendships with, Caledonians and the Irish Heritage Center and Friendly Sons of St. Patrick's. So if any of those, names or things ring a bell to you, we know people in those groups and we've enjoyed getting to know them. So our kind of participation has really narrowed to two big events throughout the year. One is the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which always falls the Saturday before St. Patrick's Day. And I haven't looked at I think St. Patrick's Day is on a Sunday this year. I could be incorrect, but if it does, it might be not the day before, but the week before on that Saturday, because they usually like to try and get as many people out as possible. And St. Patrick's Day, if it falls on a weekend, can kind of consume a lot of calendars. That being said, we're also participating in the Celtic Festival in the summertime. So that's hopefully doesn't fall on a home match day weekend, because that can usually make things a little precarious, but we're always down there enjoying, one of our members, I'll call him out, Brian Redden, does whiskey tastings down there at Celtic Festival. And his brother Sean actually owns a little meat market down here in Madeira near where I am. And we're talking about if St. Pat's falls on a weekend and he's got a nice patio, maybe he wants to grill out some of the meat market and do some whiskey there. So we'll see if there's an extra opportunity to get out and celebrate a little green. There's always a good excuse to get out and have a pint and celebrate St. Pat's. So yeah,
it looks like it's Sunday this
Sunday
year.
So yeah, we talked
when I talked Sunday.
Not to speak out of turn, but when I talked to just to tease the idea with Sean, we said maybe that Friday evening we could do something, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, so be on the lookout for an update. We always, and what's cool is whether we're involved in an event or not, there's usually a bunch of people. That's the benefit of joining, because we have the Slack, right? So usually some people will say, even if the brigade isn't officially going to be at an event, usually a handful of people will say, oh, we're going up to Dublin for the, Celtic Fest in, Columbus, or whatever it is. So
last year we had some Vanguard people, some fifth line people. So you don't have to be a member of the brigade to join the march. The key part here is that I'm the capo. That's the highlight of the event, really.
Yep.
Watch me walk backwards for a mile and a half
with a cape on. It's always lovely cape weather, and that's a good point, Matt. That is the St. Patrick's Day Parade is our thing as an SG for FC Cincinnati. We kind of represent the FC Cincinnati supporters culture in that parade, but anyone is welcome to join. You don't have to be a brigade member to march with us. It's we kind of take the lead on that because it's our thing. Whereas, DI is not going to turn any of us away in the Bachfest parade. So, yeah, if you want to join us for that, you're more than welcome.
And please do. So number two, and sadly, this is a brigade specific, and sadly, we don't really have, I can't give you the good news is that we are technically homeless. Nellie's was our place. I talked with Josh. He's like, the holiday could be your place. We could share it. We're like, that's fine. I think we need our own place. Do we have, so this is for the general public, any comments that you want to post? I heard about this bar, that bar, the other bar. There's a couple of bars that are already taken. The Symphony is already taken. Northern
What
Row
I
is already taken, but
Yeah.
I don't think we know where we're going to be yet, do we?
We don't officially, and what I will share on that front, just from conversations with our council and with Tina and other people, is we have an idea where we will be this spring, but we also are not going to we're not going to hitch our wagon to one horse. And so we're kind of excited about the opportunity that this place we might be going in the spring is a good temporary home, but we're kind of looking at the evolution of the area as to where our permanent home might be. And it might be somewhere that's already open around the March route, but there's also a chance that the March looks different as the area north of the stadium gets developed and things like that. So instead of being quick to make a decision, we're trying to be very calculated with that. I think in the past we've kind of said, "Oh my gosh, we need to make a decision. The house is on fire," and we've ended up places that have been awesome. But we want to make sure that it's the best. Wherever we land long term is going to be the best place for us, and we're excited to see what that is. But that was a long way to say we don't have a place yet.
We're getting there, and
Yeah.
so join us to help us decide. So we're running out of time here. I appreciate everybody coming in and joining me for talking everything Brigade. The last word, as always, goes to Mark. Sell us home, not take us home. Sell us home on the Brigade, sir.
Well, my quick Brigade story is I showed up. This guy right here gave me my first shot of Jameson, enjoyed it. And when I went out to Bucketheads to join, I ran into a guy that also had a pair of camo shorts on, also had a white T-shirt, and also had a hat on, and that was ET. And I looked at him like, man, are we twins or what? And it's just been amazing from there. All the great stories, all the great places we've been, Murphy's, Street City, Hangover Easy, we didn't deserve that. So many amazing times, and I just feel that we're hopefully just getting started with getting a rejuvenated pre-match environment, that we're going to have people from all walks coming in and getting ready to go 90 minutes plus, whether you're sitting or chanting in the Bailey. I want that. I want that. Nellie's, I think, met it, but it wasn't exactly what everybody wanted. Let's work towards that goal of getting what the most of us want. It's a good open place, good, gathering place, a good, easy place to get to. And let's have some fun and let's pre-match like we've never pre-matched before.
I can
I have it.
watch it for that one. That is
Gotcha.
the best way to go out. And that's why he's my ride or die always on every episode. And I missed you so much on the last episode. So this is Noah and SG. This is a series. We'll have some other SGs on here in the weeks as we go on, and we'll find out about other people. And because we are not Brigade specific, even though we are Brigaders, we are just fans, and we want to bring all the fans together as one. So I really appreciate it, Patrick, Trina, Colin, of course, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing the Brigade stories and where we come from and what we do. I couldn't have said it better. And I'll see you guys next week on FCC Supporter Square.
Sláinte.
Sláinte.
Sláinte.